Hello, my name is Tom, otherwise known as Matwa. Yes, it's pronounced Matwa. Today I'm going to be telling you just what I did to make this wonderful base for Mortarion. Welcome to Matwa Hobby. And I've done a short where it shows just what I do here on my base. It's pretty much like what I did with those small 32mm bases that I did with for my Death Guard army. But it's for Mortarion because I want him to pretty much fit in with my army. This right here is one of my favorite parts, just seeing how it crackles, and it just looks really good. My phone ran out of battery when I was doing that. And this is just PVA glue, heavily watered down to keep everything locked in. I start out with Xandri dust, of course, because it's the darkest bone color I have. And then I come up with Ushati bone, followed by Wraith bone, utilizing it with the brush to make the extreme highlights. Now, I don't know where I came up with this idea, but for some odd reason, in my head, all of my Nurglings had this very similar look to them, and it's not like what you would see on normal Nurglings. In fact, I kind of like the yellow jaundice look I get with my Nurglings when I do all of this, because this is Iron Jaws yellow, and then I use a Warpstone Glow technical paint as like a wash for the Nurglings, so that way they have kind of like a sickly green color underneath. I heavily water it down so that way it acts more like a wash rather than a technical paint. Here I am putting it over there. I make sure to get it into all the nooks and crannies of the skin. All those little fat folds and chubby parts that are just nice and ripe with detail. I usually put this on like 2 coats to get it strong. And then I highlight back up using Iyanden yellow in order to make it, or bring back a lot of that yellow to the skin of all of my Nurglings. I just think they're adorable. I love the Nurglings. Now here I start out with a corn red. It's a deep red that turns kind of like a purplish red when it dries. It goes on, it looks like it's actually going to be red, but it dries very deep purple. I really love the way it looks. It's a nice contrast. Pretty much almost every single cloth on all of these guys is, in fact, all of my cloth on all of my Death Guard usually has the same kind of steps to it, where I start off with this corn red. my next color up is, of course, going to be Mephiston Red, named after the famed Mephiston. I think he's part of the Blood Angels. If not, he's the Blood Angels Primarch. Funny that Mortarion doesn't have a color of his own. Although they do have Typhus. Oh, yeah, my camera kind of fell at that point. I had to really fix everything up. But yeah, I know they have like a Typhus Corrosion, which is the right-hand man of the Death Guard, or of Mortarion, up until he kind of helped with the corruption of Nurgle. Mortarion originally didn't want to be corrupted. He just wanted to be on his own. But of course, Typhus decided, hey, Nurgle's kind of cool. We're gonna make you do it by having Mortarion and all the rest of the Death Guard become plagued with Nurgle's rot. And it wasn't killing them, but it made them feel like they were dying. Oh, this highlight right here is going to be Evil Sunz Scarlet, which is about as bright as I go on things that really don't have much of a reason to. After this, on most of my Death Guard and as well as everything else I do, I like to actually highlight up with a mix of orange and Evil Sunz Scarlet to make it look good. Right here I'm putting Rhinox hide on the or on the handle of his little staff there, because I think of it as like dead tree. Like it's rotted, but he made it out of a dead tree branch, and he decided to hoard it around because it's Death Guard iconography. And of course, I like to base coat all of my metals using I guess what it was called was tin bits back in the day, but now it's warp block bronze. It's got that nice dark dingy color to it, so if you miss a spot, you're not gonna, notice it too much, and it has a metal sheen to it, so it makes it look really good. It's great for brass, great for copper. The only thing it's not good for is gold. I would actually highly recommend using a brighter color for that, like maybe like say some sort of a bright or like a dark silver, maybe like bulk gun metal. Now here I had all of these things for, like I like to make them all brass colored or the copper color, because to me they're like the things or the incense that they used to have back in the Catholicism days, and the smoke that's coming out of them is the plague that's being spread in much the same way that incense was used to make large masses in the old days smell pretty good, because nobody used a shower back in those days, and they really had to do something to make people smell really good. I used Daruchi Violet here as kind of like a paint for the undercoat of his arm. You could probably use something else or some other really dark violet there. This is me highlighting everything up using the grays that I've made. I actually used like black and white to make a bunch of like gray colors that go from like a really dark gray to a really light white color, or like almost off-white color. And this is so that way I can use the next color that I'm going to be using on this, which is a contrast, a lovely shade of aqua blue. it takes a while to build up that colors on the top or in the tips of them. I figure like the center mass is the brightest color, and that it's like magic of sorts coming out of those metal balls to spread the plague of Nurgle. Aethermatic blue, I do believe, is this color. All of my smoke and things like that on my Death Guard have that same color scheme. And it's always at the source, is always the brightest. So that way I can make it as good as it can be and just spread as much as it can. Here I'm over to the spiky bits of the balls, of the incense balls. That way, you know, they're not all completely copper, but I'm also highlighting the metal bits, which there really isn't that much on the way of this guy, on pretty much all of them. I usually use a copper, which you're going to see here. Yeah, this copper color, it's Screaming Bell. And for those of you who know anything in the painting YouTube world, it's the color that Casey from eBay Miniature Rescue uses for a lot of his copper, early copper colored materials. Now here, I figured this is a Primarch. He's got some powers of Nurgle, and his very presence corrupts everything around him. And I figured with Nurgle being not only the god of decay and death, he's also the god of life. He celebrates life, which is why a lot of his stuff that he has, you know, has like gnarled tree leaves or tree branches coming out, because there is also life, you know, a celebration of life within Nurgle, which is why I figured I would make this stone living stone. This is me putting down, I think Screamer, I think this is Screamer Pink. Yeah. It's a really dark magenta color. I'd have to look later as to what it is. It's Screamer, or it's a dark magenta, kind of like showing that there's blood pumping through it. I'm also cleaning up as I go along, utilizing a black color to make sure that I get rid of all those overspills and make sure everything looks as nice and neat as possible. As you can see, I'm not really sure exactly what I'm supposed to be painting black or back to black. And it's hard for me to keep everything in focus. I'm not used to doing painting like this. Gotta make sure that all the edges and everything are colored. And as you could see underneath, it's kind of got this white parts to it because I had originally put the base on with a bunch of like tile grout, and I was going to take and use that, but then I remembered, oh yeah, I've got a different scheme for all of my Nurgles, or all of my Death Guard, and it would be kind of weird to have Mortarion being the only one that doesn't have that base, so that's the reason why I decided to keep it in. Here I'm using the same bone color scheme I like to use on all of my bones, which is the Ushati bone, followed by, or not the Ushati bone, but the Xandri dust, followed by Ushati bone, followed by Wraith bone as the extreme highlight. And here I go around getting all the little tiny, what I think are boils. Imagine that, a rock that has a boil. But I guess anything's possible when you got a Nurgle chaos god involved. And here I am with the Ushati bone, followed by the Wraith bone. And of course, I also start doing that on the skin of the Nurglings as I go around doing that. And here I am painting up the Nurgling, the other two Nurglings on that I have separate, keeping them separate up until the last moment. I had originally thought about making the staff as being like a silver, but then I'm like, nah. Nurgle loves copper. Death Guard loves copper, so I decided to paint all the other metals in this copper, including the Nurgle symbol right here on the canister, and also the little fly on the front of that Nurgling. And yeah, I'm painting the base of these guys so that way it matches in with the base of Mortarion, so that way he can, or they can kind of look like they're part of the same color scheme. It's very important to make sure everything on your base is cohesive. Otherwise, people are going to be like, hey, that kind of looks a little weird, doesn't it? I just love this cork. My dad bought a bunch of cork board, and he wanted to use it for something. I don't know what he was going to use it for, but he decided to give it to me to use for whatever purposes, and it's great for keeping miniatures separate. And here I'm putting super glue gel to glue all of this down. It was kind of tough because I had to hold it down for like 30 seconds for the actual glue to hold. And here I am putting on some more of that texture paste to kind of blend in the rocks to the base itself a lot better. And as I, like halfway when I was doing this, I ran out of it and I had to make up some more. I think I color matched it very well. It wasn't really that hard to make. Just some grout, or some grout or tile grout, sand, and of course ink or black ink, as well as like some black acrylic paint, and you got yourself a nice texture paste that looks like it's like solid lava, which is what these bases are supposed to look like. Here I am gluing the Nurglings in place, so that way they can be right there in a row, marching along with Mortarion as he's ripping across the battlefield, taking out his enemies. And finally, with those Nurglings glued in place, my Mortarion base is done. I really had a lot of fun doing this project. Unfortunately, had to work on it while I'm doing work in order to actually pay the bills, of course. But at the same time, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Matara Khan from VShojo. She's a VTuber, and she's definitely been helping me an awful lot where it concerns pushing me in the right direction, especially with starting this channel. Mostly because it's something I wanted to do, and she just kind of spoke to me at a time that I definitely needed. So with that having been said, this is Matwa Hobby, and I'm hoping to have another one as soon as, painting up for the rest of Mortarion. The actual character, not just the base. Anyways, until then, I'll see you next time, probably in the next short.